Hello and welcome to a new project. Let's play Final Fantasy Record Keeper. Record Keeper, if you're not familiar with it, is a mobile game for Android and iOS, produced by Square Enix and DNA Games. I'm not usually a huge fan of mobile games in the free-to-play type, but I watched a friend of mine play this about a year ago, and I pretty much instantly fell in love with it. I'm a huge fan of the Final Fantasy series, and I consider Record Keeper to basically be a celebration of the series as a whole, so I've really enjoyed playing it for the last several months. It's probably the game I have the most playtime recorded in over that time period. As much as I'm not a fan of mobile games, I find the fact that it's mostly a single-player game without a lot of interaction between players, and the fact that the free-to-play style mechanics are extremely unintrusive to make it really appealing to me as more of an old-school gaming fan who didn't really take to the mobile gaming trend in general. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and hit play and jump right in, and I'll explain to you a little bit about the basics before maybe diving into a few battles. So in case it isn't obvious from the music, if you're a fan of, or if you've played Final Fantasy V before, this is the Battle on the Big Bridge theme from one of the climactic battles of Final Fantasy V in the mid-game. There's an event going on right now themed around the Battle on the Big Bridge, which I'll show off in a little bit. But let's go cover some of the details about what we see here on the main menu, because this game has been out for quite a while, and there's a lot of systems and a lot of ways to improve your characters and a lot of things to do, and it can be pretty overwhelming when you try to approach it from first glance. So up here on the upper left, this is my Mithril. Mithril is the game's meta currency. It's basically the equivalent of what you would spend money for if you run out. I only have 3 right now. The game actually gives you a lot of Mithril, but I have basically no impulse control, and I spend it on items pretty much as soon as I get it. This is your money. I've got quite a lot of gil, about 24 million. You only use this to craft abilities and to upgrade equipment for your characters, so for the most part, if you're like me and you've been playing this game for a long time, you probably have more gil than you know what to do with. I certainly don't. This is my stamina gauge. Of course, this is a mobile game, so it has a stamina gauge to keep you from clearing all the content in first, within the first couple of days of playing the game. I've got 140 stamina, which is pretty close to the maximum that you can have at this point in the game. I think the maximum you can have is 164. A typical dungeon at this point takes about 50 stamina to clear, and it regenerates at a rate of about 20 per hour, so what I've got right now takes about 7 hours to regenerate. You can spend a mithril to completely refill your stamina bar, and in fact, every single dungeon in the main storyline of the game gives you at least 1 mithril. So one thing I do like about this game is that if you really want to progress and really want to make it through the main storyline, you can play effectively infinitely as long as you're willing to spend your mithril on that and not on the random draw of items. So what's going on down here? Down here in the center, these are the 3 different types of dungeons that you can explore in the game itself. So the realms over here in the bottom, let's go ahead and stand and walk right in. So the realms are the meat of the game and the main story. It's a bunch of dungeons themed around famous battles in Final Fantasy history, and there's battles corresponding to every single game in the series, all the way up to and including the online games, Final Fantasy XI and Final Fantasy XIV. Let's go ahead and open one of these just to give you an idea of what they look like. Yes, there's a little bit of downloading. So yeah, there's some nice music from Final Fantasy I. There's an awful lot of music from the Final Fantasy series in here, and I love the music, so I enjoy that aspect of the game. If you've played the game before, some of these dungeon names should look pretty familiar. So you start the first dungeon of the game, the Chaos Shrine. Let's go ahead and click on this. So you can see it gives you a little bit of an overview of the storyline that you're about to play through, the kinds of rewards that you're going to get, which include some money, some crafting orbs. This is how you get the shards that allow you to upgrade your stamina meter, and you can get characters, and of course you get a mithril. And then lastly, there's a boss in every dungeon. I won't go into the main dungeons right now, the storyline dungeons, because I've cleared most of them already, and they aren't quite as interesting as some of the event dungeons. There's also, you see this button here called Elite Dungeons. Every dungeon has 2 forms, a classic and an elite form. They are basically the same, except the enemy stats are higher, and the stamina cost is higher for the elite dungeons, and of course the rewards are a little bit better too. And to fully complete the main storyline, to max out your stamina gauge, and to get all the rewards the game gives you, more or less for free, you have to clear both the classic and the elite forms. But that's not really what I really want to show you today. I'd like to show off some of the events, because I think it serves as a good introduction to get you used to what the game looks like, how to construct a party, and how the battle system works. So let's go ahead and look at the event dungeons. You'll notice there was something called the Nightmare. I think I'll save that as a teaser for later if people are really interested in watching me play this game. So the main event for today, the event that's going on this week, is called Dawn Over the Big Bridge. One thing to note is that Record Keeper came out about 6 months ago in Japan, so the American version is still catching up. The Dawn Over the Big Bridge was actually a New Year's themed event. The Dawn Over the Big Bridge symbolizes the dawn of New Year's Day. It was an event that spawned, it was basically a boss rush. Let's go ahead and click on this. So a boss would spawn every day, so starting, basically themed as a countdown. So here is the first boss, Kefka from Final Fantasy VI. He's on what's called the 7th span. And so this is supposed to be released 7 days before New Year's, and every day a new boss would come out, culminating in, spoiler alert, although it's pretty obvious if you're familiar with the battle on the Big Bridge from Final Fantasy V, it culminates in a fight against Gilgamesh, the foil to the protagonists in that game. Kefka is not particularly difficult for someone like me who's been playing the game for a long time. He's only difficulty 45. The difficulty scales, originally it scaled from 1 to 99, which I guess is supposed to correspond to what people think of as the level system in Final Fantasy. Due to power creep, right now the difficulty goes all the way up to 160. That difficulty I can clear using my party, which is mostly free to play. So a difficulty 45 dungeon is not going to be super hard for me. So let's go stomp on Kefka. Alright, so let's take a look at the rewards. We get 3,000 gil, not so bad. We get 5 power orbs, which can be used to craft physical abilities. 10 growth eggs, which you can feed to some of your characters which you've obtained, which need to catch up with your other ones. You get a mithril, of course, like you get from almost everything. And you get a soul of a hero, which if you've missed some of the previous events, you can use to recruit older Final Fantasy characters just to catch up to some of the stuff that's been released in the game's previous year. Let's take a look at Kefka's details. Okay, attacks with magic. Yeah, this is written from the perspective of Mog. Kefka is immune to silence, so you can't silence him, you just have to heal through his magic or mitigate it. Bring characters with healing abilities. Okay, that's fine. I usually want to bring a white mage in my party most of the time anyway. And the target score is to defeat Kefka without being KO'd. So let's enter the dungeon. And now I haven't really touched at all on party construction. The parties in the game consist of basically all of the previous protagonists and even some of the villains and maybe even some minor characters in Final Fantasy history. There's no particular reason why I have these 5 characters equipped. I wasn't trying to show anything off. This is just what I happened to have before I started the LP. I've got Quistis from Final Fantasy VIII. She was my black mage. Eiko was my white mage from Final Fantasy IX and my summoner. And these are my physical attackers, Zidane, Agrias, and Auron. Yes, even though it's not one of the main 14 games, there was a Final Fantasy Tactics event a couple of months ago, releasing Ramza and Agrias from that game. So if you're a fan of Tactics, that was represented too. Alright, so let's go ahead and build a party to go fight Kefka. So I've got 5 party slots, so let's replace Auron with Sephiroth. Sephiroth is, as we know, the greatest hero in the history of Final Fantasy. Let's go ahead and, as a white mage, let's see, who's a good white mage? Let's bring, yeah, so I've got a lot of characters and they're all, and I've got them sorted from highest level to lowest level. If you pay attention, you'll see a wide variety of characters from a whole bunch of different Final Fantasies, including people you probably didn't expect to see. Let's replace Eiko with Aerith, because as we know, Aerith and Sephiroth are best friends. Let's see, who else? I'd like to have a black mage to replace Quistis, so let's go ahead and go up here and take Hope from Final Fantasy XIII, because I hope you will enjoy this LP. And for the last 2 slots, well, this is Final Fantasy VI, and if you bring a character from the realm that the battle corresponds to, you get a bonus. So let's bring some Final Fantasy VI characters. Let's bring Terra, again, because this is a Kefka battle. And let's also bring Kefka, and we will reenact, oops, that famous scene in Final Fantasy VI where Kefka and Terra teamed up to rescue Terra from Kefka. Right. Anyway, so now we've got 2 characters from Final Fantasy VI. They should get a bonus. The bonus corresponds to 10 levels that apply even if your character is at their level cap. I won't get too much into the level cap right now, except to say that the level cap for individual characters is either 65 or 80, depending upon whether or not that character has received an event or a buff from DNA recently. So every character I've got here is either capped at 65 or at 80. The 2 characters that have a bonus for this being Final Fantasy VI, Kefka and Terra, basically get the equivalent of an extra 10 levels. So Terra is an effective level 77, Kefka is an effective level 75. You can amplify this by equipping relics or equipment to these characters that also correspond to that realm, and I've got some of that just from spending all my mithril on the relic draw. I've got a rod from Final Fantasy VI, so I'll give it to Kefka because he's spec'd as a black mage in this game. And let's give him a piece of equipment. Let's give him an armor. I've actually got, let's see, sort this by series and Final Fantasy VI. So just like the characters, the equipment gets a bonus if you bring it to the realm that it corresponds to. And I've actually got Kefka's cloak, which is a pretty cool item. It actually confers an additional ability onto Kefka if he learns it. And let's give him an accessory. I've got a whole bunch of cool accessories. Let's give him something that improves his magic. So here's an accessory, the Crystal Orb. This was given away for free in a previous event. So this increases his magic and his attack, so that's pretty good for speccing him as a black mage. Alright, and now let's go through his abilities. Every character can equip 2 abilities. When you craft them originally, they usually have either 2 or 4 uses, and you can expend additional orbs to rank them up, giving you more uses. Usually to take on higher difficulty dungeons, having more hones, or higher uses on your abilities tends to be more important than having stronger abilities themselves. Of course, since I've been playing this game for a long time, I have both strong abilities with a lot of uses. So let's give Kefka Flare, which you may be familiar with. It's one of the most powerful black magics in Final Fantasy, which I've got 6 uses of, which is rank 3. 2 times 3 is 6. And we'll give him Water God, which is the most powerful water magic spell. I've got that at rank 4, so I've got 8 uses. So Kefka's already pretty powerful. Let's do Hope. He's also a black mage, so I can give him some of the other leftover spells. Let's give him a high-ranking bio spell. Hope is actually, since he's both a medic and a Ravager in Final Fantasy XIII, also has the ability to use white magic. So let's give him Shelga, which will give an AoE shell to my entire team and protect against Kefka's magic. It probably won't be necessary. Kefka might actually die before I get any of these abilities off. Sephiroth, I use him quite a lot, so I've already got him equipped with 2 abilities. Life Siphon increases his limit break gauge, and Armor Break reduces the defense of the enemy I'm fighting. So that's a pretty good ability to load out for Kefka as a physical attacker. Let's give him some equipment. I was in a Final Fantasy IX dungeon, so he's using a Final Fantasy IX dagger. Sephiroth, I think, can only use katanas and daggers. That's part of what balances the fact that he has one of the highest strength values in the game. So I don't think I have a good Final Fantasy VI weapon for him. Let's go ahead and give him his katana, the Yoshiyuki, which isn't actually his katana in the game, but they've decided that since Sephiroth has to have some unique weapons, he gets the Yoshiyuki. So let's give him that. It's got pretty high attack rating, so it's useful, generally speaking, even if you don't have synergy with the realm. Let's give him the Nutkin suit, because it's funny, and from Final Fantasy VI. That Sephiroth would wear the Nutkin suit. Nutkin suit is actually a relic from Strago. And he's got the Ares accessory, which is one of the best attack-boosting accessories in the game, so let's just leave it on him. Let's do Ares. I don't think I have another staff. Oh, I do have one more staff from Final Fantasy VI, but it might not be a Mind Staff, since Ares is a white mage. Black magic scales off of magic, white magic scales off of mind, so we want to give her an item that has pretty good mind. This isn't so bad, so let's do that. Go ahead and give her this Morningstar relic. And now let's give her an armor. Let's give her the Regal Gown. I had this previously equipped on Celis for no particular reason. I'm sure this was some previous Final Fantasy VI event. And let's go ahead and give her a good accessory. Let's give her the Zephyr Cloak to increase her resistance to magic, since Kefka uses magic. And lastly, let's do Terra. So Terra can use swords, so we can make her a physical attacker. That's not a bad idea, since I've already got 2 black mages in the team. Let's give her the Soul Saber, which is another Final Fantasy VI sword. It's actually one of Celis' items in this version of the game, but since I'm not using Celis on my team, she can graciously give her sword to Terra. Let's give her the Royal Crown, because that increases all of her stats. Hats usually increase your magic and your mind, so since Terra's a black mage. Not that I'm using her as a black mage right now, but it's a good way. It's a good equipment to have on her, just in general, in case I happen to want to use her as a black mage later and I forget to take all of her equipment off. Let's give her some abilities. So we're going to use her as a physical attacker. So let's see what physical abilities she has available to her. Let's see. She has a lot of black magic, a lot of summons, and I believe she has access to support abilities, which are a stronger version of the armor break ability that Sephiroth has. So I can give her Magic Breakdown, which will reduce Kefka's magic, and I can give her Power Breakdown in case Kefka uses physical attacks on us for any reason. I actually don't know what his ability loadout is, but it's as good a reason as any. Okay, I think I forgot to give Hope equipment, so let's go ahead and do that now. Just to finish off our team, and then we'll more or less be ready to go. There's more to the game than this. Yeah, Hope can use thrown weapons, but I don't have any spec for magic, I think. Yes, for this realm. So let's go ahead and just give him one of his relics, so I think I've already given the best items to Aeris and to Kefka. Somewhere around here, yeah, there we go. I have one of Hope's relics from Final Fantasy 13. It's got pretty good stats. Let's use that. And let's give him a piece of armor, and then we'll be ready to go. Let's give him Mog's Scarf. Sure. It's got the synergy. It's got this blue aura around it, symbolizing that it's a Final Fantasy 6 item. It's got pretty good defensive stats, so alright. We've got a full team now. Again, this is a dungeon well below my difficulty level, so it'll basically be us. Oops, I forgot to give Aeris abilities. Let's go ahead and finish this off. I'll give her a healing spell, although I probably won't need to heal, and let's give her Holy, because I gave Kefka Flare, and so it's nice to have both Flare and Holy on my team. It feels pretty good to have the game's sort of most infamous top-tier white magic spell and the game's most infamous top-tier black magic spell. So the Soul Break and the Record Materia I will explain probably in a later video. The Soul Breaks are, just as a brief introduction, are the game's limit breaks, and the characters learn them. They all start with the default one. Aeris is a Seal Evil, and the characters learn them by gaining their unique relics through the relic draw, which you would spend Mithril on or real money. I have a whole bunch of them obviously already, so I've got I'm using characters mostly, especially in the case of Kefka, Hope, and Sephiroth. I've previously drawn unique relics for, like I've shown you. I've got Kefka's Cloak, I've got Sephiroth's Yoshiyuki, and I've got Hope's Hawkeye. So I've already learned some of their unique limit breaks, and I'll try to use at least one of them during this fight against Kefka, assuming he doesn't die before then. Alright, so let's go ahead and dive right in to the battle system. Oops, apparently I've got too much equipment. So let's go ahead and sell some of that. I'll just briefly show you the inventory screen and how to use it. So I guess we'll get a little bit of all the basics here. So let's sort by rarity, ascending. Let's sell the junk that I get. Because the events do tend to give you, if you don't already have items corresponding to a given realm, often the events will give you some freebies. So I'm only one above the maximum, so let's just sell one item for now, and I'll take care of the rest off camera. This was just some piece of junk that I got from a previous Final Fantasy 6 event. Alright, now we're ready to go, maybe, finally. Alright, let's go next. So, one of the things I really like about this game that makes it accessible compared to a lot of other mobile games is that you're allowed to select a roaming warrior, meaning that someone who's already done the relic draw and picked up some of the game's really powerful and really rare relics, you can choose them as your friend. You can add them to a followers list, or actually, if we scroll down here to the bottom, the game will also suggest 3 to you for free. And so you can try out some of the really powerful limit breaks for yourself if you weren't able to draw the relics for yourself. And it actually uses the stats of the character who you're following, or the character who you're summoning, as opposed to your own stats. So it's actually a really good way, if you're a little bit underleveled and you like to try to clear an event which is a little bit above your level, you can, for example, summon someone who has a really powerful soul break, or a really good utility soul break, to give you that little extra boost that you need to get over the hump. In fact, when I first started playing this game, I actually cleared the first half of the first event to unlock, I think it was actually a Cecil event from Final Fantasy IV, basically entirely using my roaming warrior. So it's a way to give you access and sort of a preview and like wet your whistle for what the really powerful relics look like without having to spend a lot of money on them. So I don't know if I'm going to want to show one off here, so let's go ahead and use Shout, because that's a really good utility soul break. It's Ram's soul break. It's one of the 2 or 3 most powerful, generally regarded as, in the entire game. It raises the entire party's physical attack by 50% and grants them all haste. So if you have a physical party, I don't, but if you did, this would be one of the best roaming warriors to select. I'll use it now just because it will allow me to use my abilities to take down Kefka, as opposed to relying on my roaming warrior. Alright, so there he is. We get to hear Kefka's music. I assume since this is this particular Kefka sprite, it corresponds to, again, the scene in Final Fantasy VI, where Kefka and his soldiers from Vector are attacking Narsh, and your team has to defend Terra from attack. So that's why I brought Terra along, because she didn't do anything during that scene in Final Fantasy VI, so now is her chance to get some revenge. If you've forgotten any special conditions that the boss has, you can click on this button here and it will tell you the target score is only to defeat Kefka without being KO'd. If you match the target score, then you have a higher chance of achieving mastery on the dungeon, which means you get all of the rewards. Right, and let's go ahead and dive right in. This takes 11 stamina. I've got 140, so no problems here. And it's only one round, which is only the fight against Kefka himself. The brain dungeons have rounds against trash and stuff, but that's something for a different video. Alright, let's go ahead and dive right in. Let's begin battle. Yep, it's got the fight whoosh from Final Fantasy VI. I think it uses that for a lot of the older Final Fantasy games. Yeah, the game's got a lot of loading time, even on a PC emulator. I don't know why. Alright, here we go, and it's got, yep, the Final Fantasy VI battle music. So here we can pause and set the battle speed. This is great for when you're fighting some of the more difficult bosses in the game. You can set it to 5 if you're just clearing trash out in the lower level dungeon, or you can set it to 1 if you really want to carefully consider your options. And you can run away here. I'll just leave it at 3, because I don't think Kefka will do very much damage to me. Yeah, Terra has some unique dialogue, which is pretty cool. Let's pretend like we're taking this fight seriously, and use Shelga to raise our magic defense, and we'll use Shout to give our characters haste. And then we'll start unloading on him with some of our abilities. So let's start by having Kefka use Flare. Yeah, I love the animations in some of these. It's really cool. Also note that Kefka has an animation which he didn't have when he was in Final Fantasy VI. I do think it's really nice that the new boss, even some of the old bosses, have gotten a touch-up for the better graphical capabilities of new smartphones. Let's go ahead and reduce his magic. Use Bioga. Yeah, Kefka I think only has about 40,000 hit points. So since my party is pretty over-leveled for this fight, we should take him down in about 5 hits of 999 damage. Yeah, the traditional Final Fantasy damage limit of 9999 isn't effective. And he says he won't forget this, and he won't actually, because there is another fight against Kefka within the same event, which we will unlock by beating his weaker version now. Yep, so he drops an orb, which we can use to craft items. I'll show off the crafting system some other time. Alright, what do we get? So the first thing it'll show us is the experience screen, as soon as it loads. A lot of loading time. There we go. So I got champion for hitting all the target scores. Usually, in most fights, you're graded on the number of actions that you took, the amount of damage that you took, and the number of characters you got that were KO'd. You get 1 for free to still get full medals. So I could have had 4 characters alive and I would have still gotten all the medals. Damage taken is actually quite a lot for event battles. I was not anywhere close to worrying about losing a medal, even if I had been in danger. And of course I beat Kefka without being KO'd. Championing this means I get 200% experience, and the fact that I brought Terra and Kefka meant that they also get additional bonus experience. So usually you want to try to include as many characters from the game that you're fighting as possible. And again, we got a summon orb. It's pretty cool. Summon orbs are hard to get to make summon abilities. And of course, for achieving all medals, we also get full mastery in this dungeon, and we unlock the Rift version of the 7th span fight against Kefka, which is a much higher difficulty level. And we get a Mithril, and we get a bunch of junk, and a Soul of a Hero. Wonderful. Alright, so fighting the Rift version of Kefka, I think, is a video unto itself. So why don't we go ahead and move a span up and try the easier version of the next boss, which is Odin from Final Fantasy XIII. He's difficulty 60 and takes 13 stamina, so he should be a little bit more challenging than Kefka, but still not really bothersome for my party. Let's take a look at his description. Powerful enemy with a variety of attacks and no real vulnerabilities. Defensive abilities like Power Break and Protect Ga come highly recommended in this fight. So while Kefka was purely magic-based, although we never really saw him use any magic, Odin is physical, and the target score is only to beat him without being KO'd. So let's go ahead and try this one. I don't think I need to change my party specs that much. I've already got one Final Fantasy XIII character in Hope. Let's go ahead and change some of these people out anyway. I think at a minimum Lightning should be in here because Odin is her Eidolon. I think Lightning was the only character who fought Odin during that particular scene. Maybe Hope was there too in Final Fantasy 13. I didn't really play the whole game yet, although I am inspired to do so after playing some of the dungeons and events in Record Keeper. Alright, so we've got Lightning, and we've got Hope. Who else do we want to bring? Let's bring Yuffie? Sure, why not? Let's bring Ramza, because I get a lot of use out of Ramza as a roaming warrior. And let's bring Desh, because I think nobody has any idea who Desh is. He's Final Fantasy 3. Yes, the Japanese 3, not the American 3. Alright, let's see, let's just optimize. So there is an optimize button that will fill out your entire equipment loadout with the highest ranking equipment that you can equip from that realm if available, which isn't currently equipped in other characters. So I got a pretty good equipment loadout. I'm pretty happy with this. Let's go ahead and confirm it, to save you the trouble of having to watch me go through the entire equipment selection screen all over again. Let's go ahead and fight Odin. Let's see. So let's pick a damaging Super Soul Break so you can get to see some of the cool animations that exist. Let's bring Cloud's Fenrir Overdrive. So this is actually a Soul Break themed from Final Fantasy Advent Children, and it's not something that you would really ever expect Cloud to have in a game like this. Just based on, in assuming you've played Final Fantasy VII in the past and you know what Cloud's limit breaks look like. Yeah, so we've got some Final Fantasy 13 music, that's pretty great, and I think we'll also get the battle music. I love the FF13 music. I think it's fantastic. I'm really happy that they included a lot of it in Record Keeper. Alright, so... yeah, he gives us a Doom counter. I should be able to kill him well before it runs out, but, you know, whatever. Wind Slash, I honestly didn't really pay that much attention to what abilities they gave me, which really shouldn't be a problem. Let's use Thundaja. Let's go ahead and use Fenrir Overdrive just so you can see it. So yeah, I'm not doing quite as much damage because I didn't carefully construct my team like I did for the Kefka fight, and of course Odin has a little bit higher stats. There we go. So Fenrir Overdrive is based around Cloud's motorcycle from Final Fantasy Advent Children, and we get to watch him just beat the hell out of bosses with his motorcycle. It's just, like, really hilarious that they chose this before Omni Slash or Finishing Touch or any of his other, like, famous attacks. I think I can actually also have someone else use the motorcycle. It also confers what's called Burst Mode in this game, which is a unique feature to a handful of limit breaks that have been released in the game so far, called Burst Soul Breaks. It's just like the most recent form of power creep in the game that replaces your normal attack and defend commands with like really powerful, the equivalent of really powerful abilities. But what's cool about it, although you won't get to see it because I just killed Odin right here by lightning strike from lightning, is that the character will actually get to use Cloud's Buster Sword to execute the attacks. So you can do all kinds of goofy things like give Red 13 Cloud's Buster Sword. Alright, so again, not too difficult. And I think after this, so far they've unlocked up to the 5th span of the bridge. So we've cleared the first 2 and unlocked the Rift versions, which again are much more difficult and will take much longer than a single video than what I've got left in this video to beat. So let's go ahead and clear the 5th span, and I think we'll call it a video. Yeah, so if whenever you choose a roaming warrior that you're not already a follower for, you can choose to add them to your followers list so they'll show up more frequently when you initiate a battle. Alright, so there we go. We've cleared the 6th span on the light side. So the 5th span is Golbez, the main antagonist for most of Final Fantasy IV. He's also difficulty 60, so he shouldn't be too difficult. And then this is the Rift, you know, the Rift from Final Fantasy V. That's the theme of this event, that the Rift is opening and bringing all the bosses from different Final Fantasy games together to help you, to challenge you as you run the big bridge up to Gilgamesh. So this opens at 17 o'clock PST on the 28th. This is just tomorrow, so tomorrow there'll be a new boss. But for now, all we've got left for us is Golbez. So this icon here, we'll explain this a little bit later. Let's go ahead and open up the Golbez screen. So again, you get 5,000 gil, some crafting orbs, a mithril, and a memory crystal load 1. I was talking previously about how the characters have different level caps. When you first get a character, the level cap is 50. If you get a memory crystal corresponding to that character, you can break their level cap and move it up to 65. There's also a second memory crystal called Memory Crystal Load 2, I think, that allows you to break the level 65 cap up to 80. So that's why I have some characters at 65 and some characters at 80. I actually have all the available Memory Crystals and Memory Crystal 2s. The fact that I have some characters at level 65 means that DNA just hasn't enabled those characters to break their level a second time. Let's take a look at Golbez. Golbez, this is actually the version of the Golbez fight that you participate in when you first go to the Underground in Final Fantasy IV, where you fight Golbez plus his Shadow Dragon. And he also has shifting elemental weaknesses. During the Rift version of the fight, you actually do have to pay attention to his weaknesses, and part of the target score will be to hit his weaknesses when they're available. But for now, our only goal is just to beat Golbez and the Shadow Dragon without being KO'd. So he's vulnerable to holy damage, so we'll try to use some holy abilities. Let's mix up the team a little bit more. Let's go back to a team I'm more familiar with, just to make things a little bit quicker. Let's bring Sephiroth back in, because he is the holiest of Final Fantasy characters. Let's bring Yuna, because she's a white mage. You'll note that I'm using Yuna's Gunner costume from Final Fantasy X-2. This is an alternate costume that was released during a X-2 event a little while ago. So yeah, the characters can have alternate costumes, although only a few have them right now. Let's bring Agrias, because she's a knight, actually a paladin, and paladins do tend to have access to holy abilities. Let's see, what else can we bring? Let's bring the Warrior of Light, because of course the Warrior of Light should be able to use holy abilities. Let's bring another white mage. Let's bring Gilgamesh, he's a white mage, right? Sure. Oops. Yeah, Gilgamesh. Yeah, Gilgamesh actually is also a character in the game. He's very popular from Final Fantasy V, so they released him actually before Faris and Creel, who were two of the main playable characters at the end of Final Fantasy V. He's just that popular. Sephiroth, too. Sephiroth was released before the majority of the Final Fantasy VII playable cast. Everybody except, I think, Tifa and Cloud. So yeah, they're really pandering to the fan base with these guys. Let's go ahead and optimize, and then we'll work on the abilities to make sure that we have some holy abilities. Alright, so Agrias is our best... Oops. Gotta confirm. Agrias is our best knight, so let's give her some knight abilities. So this is a 5-star ability called Full Charge I recently received, so I was testing it out. Gilgamesh apparently is already using Saint Cross, which is a 5-star holy ability, so let's go ahead and leave that on him. The other holy ability that I have that's high ranking for physical characters is Banishing Strike, which is a single holy attack that also dispels all buffs on the boss you're fighting. So I don't know if Golbez uses any buffs, but this should be pretty useful. Yuna is a summoner and a white mage, so she can use both abilities. I can give her Diaga, which is a pretty highly ranked holy ability, and I can also give her... I can give her Majuin. Fine. Majuin makes sense that Yuna can use Majuin, because we all remember that part of Final Fantasy X. And now Sephiroth, will just leave him with Life Siphon and Armor Break. And for the Warrior of Light, I have already used all the good holy abilities, Saint Cross, Diaga, and Banishing Strike. It doesn't really make sense to give him Diaga. It's cool that he can use it, but really a lot of the Paladin-type characters like Warrior of Light are spec'd that way really more so that you can use things like Protect God and Shell God rather than that you can use damaging abilities because their mind stat tends not to be very high. So let's leave him with Magic Break and Power Break because those will reduce the stats of Golbez if it really matters. And we know that Gilgamesh was already given Saint Cross and Yukikaze, which is a samurai ability that hits AoE and inflicts Blind. Blind, I don't think Golbez is weak against Blind, but it's a pretty good ability, so let's go ahead and leave it on him. Alright, I'm pretty happy with this. So let's go ahead and fight Golbez. Let's pick a nice roaming warrior to use against something pretty cool. Since we're using Gilgamesh, we've got Gilgamesh's limit break here, so let's use that. Awesome. Alright, here we go. Yep, so that should be Golbez's theme for people who are familiar with it. Let's go ahead and dive right in, and this will be probably our last fight for today. Awesome. Yeah, Mod gives you tips. Of course, here's how to get stronger, level up your characters, upgrade your equipment, hone your abilities, like you've never played an RPG before and have no idea what you're doing. Sigh. You'd think that since I'm fighting a level 60 boss, they wouldn't really give you tutorials as basic as that. Anyway, let's unload on him with some holy abilities. Saint's Cross is really powerful. It's two very strong holy strikes. I think it'll almost kill Golbez by himself, but we won't even get to see Gilgamesh's Soul Break. There we go. Looks really cool too. It looks like a really powerful ability. Yeah, there we go. Alright, let's use Gilgamesh's Soul Break with the Warrior of Light. It actually summons Enkidu, who is Gilgamesh's companion from Final Fantasy V, and it will, I think, raise your party's defense or give them regen or some buff that doesn't matter because I'm going to end the fight right here. I love the animation for the Soul Breaks. I love just like going through the roaming warrior, high five and hit him with your spear. It's just really funny to me. Cloud's motorcycle, like this game is super tongue-in-cheek in terms of how they like interpret the events from the Final Fantasy games and you know, convert them to something that we can use in the style of Record Keeper. So I guess killing Golbez doesn't end the fight by itself. We actually have to kill the Shadow Dragon, so let's go ahead and do that by using all of our best abilities. Agarius will just headbutt him to death, and that's the end of that. I do like that for almost every fight they use the Battle Fade from Final Fantasy VI. I think it's pretty cool. Although, like, some of the more recent events do have more unique enemy death sequences that are more consistent with how that scene played out in that individual game, so that's pretty cool too. Alright, so we win again, and dungeon complete and mastery. And we've unlocked now the Reform of Golbez, too. We got a 4-star Greater Growth Egg, which gives an awful lot of experience to a character we need to catch up. Of course, I've got a lot of high-level characters already, so I don't really need it. And we've got a Memory Crystal Load, which we can use to unlock a character's first level cap, which, again, I don't need to do, but this is how you would pick them up, for example, if you missed a bunch of events and you want to unlock a level cap for your favorite character or something. Alright. So I think this serves, I think, a pretty thorough introduction for what Record Keeper is like. If people are interested in it, I'd be happy to do a whole bunch more videos going way more in depth in some of the things that I only glossed over in this episode. So I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you hopefully for the next episode of Let's Play Final Fantasy Record Keeper. See you then.